2 years. How are you? How are you? Sorry, I'm still setting up. Oh gosh. Sorry for that long waiting screen. Alright, let me say hello to everybody. Hello Miha, hello Ricky, hello Alec, hello Flower Nut, hello Ebak, hello Dido, hello Raptor, hello Ruin, hello Good, hello Bicey, hello Hut, hello everybody. Matthew, thank you so much for the membership, 2 years, wow. Thank you so much, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that. 2 years, wow. Wow, wow. Alex, thank you so much for the membership. 19 months. That's a very long time. Thank you. Doing great, I'm good. I'm glad that you're doing well. Not too well. I hope that these stories can make you feel better. Hanging out, been a long week, but glad to be here. I'm glad you're here too, Ricky. Thank you so much. And take it easy on this last day of the work week. Yay! I hope that it was an easy day. And it wasn't too stressful. How is Mocchubin? I've been fine. Just normal, you know. Just normal. Nothing exciting. Just normal. So today I will be reading some bedtime stories to you. I've got the stories in front of me. And I wanted to say that if there is a story that you grew up with that you're fond of, I'd love to know. And maybe I'll consider reading it in the future. So today, I am specifically going to be reading Brothers Grimm stories. The classics. Some of them can be a little bit dark, so just letting you know in advance. The stories are quite short, so I'm not sure how many we'll get through today, but yeah, I don't know how many we'll get through. 4, maybe 4, maybe more, depending on how quickly I read them. But we'll see. We'll see. I've never really read to anyone before, so this is a first for me. So if I sound a bit awkward or something, that's why I've never read out loud to anyone, so The Grims have some bad endings, right? Right? It'll be fun, yeah. It will. So I'm gonna keep the vibes nice and chill today, and hopefully we can relax together. Unwind. Well, I don't know if this would count as a ASMR stream. I don't know. Is it giving ASMR? I don't know. Can you hear the rain? Is it loud enough? Or does it need to be quieter? Or louder, rather? Okay, I've got my storybook down here, so I'll be looking at that every so often. It's perfect. Good volume. Okay, thank you. I will say during the story, I might not. Well, I probably won't read chat just because I didn't want to interrupt the story, you know. But after I finish the stories, I will. I'll chat to you, okay? Okay. My first story. Where is it? I need to find it. Donut! I'm so sorry I won't be able to stay long. I've been traveling all day. I'm definitely gonna use this stream to fall asleep. I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, Fall Night! No problem. That's okay. That's okay. I hope that your day was good nonetheless. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I've got alerts on silent, but I see them all, and I'll read them all out. Thank you, Fall Night. Have a great rest, okay? I hope that you can get some good rest with my stories. Hopefully they don't scare you. Where's my story? I need to find the index. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, that. And maybe you would, maybe some of you haven't heard of the stories that I'll read. I doubt you wouldn't have heard of any of these, but maybe you've never read them before. I'm mostly gonna choose stories that I grew up with, that are nostalgic to me. The Tale of the Happy Quokka. Maybe one day that'll exist. Maybe one day. Alright. Are you ready? All tucked in? Nice and cozy, ready for a bedtime story? My first story that I'll be reading is Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin. Okay. Let me have a drink before I start. Okay. Alright, let's begin. Let me just situate this real quick. Okay. There was once a miller who was poor, but he had one beautiful daughter. It happened one day that he came to speak with the king, And to give himself consequence, he told him that he had a daughter who could spin gold out of straw. The king said to the miller, "That is an art that pleases me well. If your daughter is as clever as you say, bring her to my castle tomorrow, that I may put her to the proof." When the girl was brought to him, he led her into a room that was quite full of straw, and gave her a wheel and a spindle, and said, "Now set to work, and if by the early morning you have not spun this straw gold, you shall die." And he shut the door himself and left her there alone. And so the poor miller's daughter was left there sitting, and could not think of what to do for her life. She had no notion how to set to work to spin gold from straw, and her distress grew so great that she began to weep. Then all at once the door opened, and in came a little man who said, "Good evening, miller's daughter. Why are you crying?" "Oh," answered the girl, "I have got to spin gold out of straw, and I don't understand the business." Then the little man said, "What will you give me if I spin it for you?" "My necklace," said the girl. The little man took the necklace, seated himself before the wheel, and whirr, 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 3 times round, and the bobbin was full. Then he took up another, and whirr, 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 3 times round, and that was full. And so he went on till morning. When all the straw had been spun, and all the bobbins were full of gold, at sunrise came the king, and when he saw the gold, he was astonished and very much rejoiced, for he was very avaricious. Avaricious? He had the miller's daughter taken into another room filled with straw, much bigger than the last, and told her that as she valued her life, she must spin it all in one night. The girl did not know what to do, so she began to cry. And then the door opened, and the little man appeared and said, "What will you give me if I spin all this straw into gold?" "The ring from my finger," answered the girl. So the little man took the ring, and began again to send the wheels whirring around. And by the next morning, all the straw was spun into glistening gold. The king was rejoiced beyond measure at the sight, but as he could never have enough of gold, he had the miller's daughter taken to a still larger room full of straw, and said, "This too must be spun in one night, and if you accomplish it, you shall be my wife." For he thought, "Although she is but a miller's daughter, I am not likely to find anyone richer in the whole world." As soon as the girl was left alone, the little man appeared for the 3rd time and said, "What will you give me if I spin the straw for you this time?" "I have nothing left to give," answered the girl. "Then you must promise me the first child you have after you are queen," said the little man. "But who knows whether that will happen?" thought the girl. But as she did not know what else to do in her necessity, she promised the little man what he desired, upon which he began to spin until all the straw was gold. And when in the morning the king came around and found all done according to his wish, he caused the wedding to be held at once. And the miller's pretty daughter became a queen. In a year's time she brought a fine child into the world, and thought no more of the little man. But one day he came suddenly into her room and said, "Now give me what you promised me." The queen was terrified greatly, and offered the little man all the riches of the kingdom if he would only leave her child. But the little man said, "No, I would rather have something living than all the treasures of the world." Then the queen began to lament and to weep, so that the little man had pity upon her. "I will give you 3 days," said he, "and if at the end of that time you cannot tell my name, you must give up the child to me." Then the queen spent the whole night thinking over all the names that she had ever heard, and sent a messenger through the land to ask far and wide for all the names that could be found. And when the little man came next day, beginning with Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar, she repeated all she knew and went through the whole list. But after each, the little man said, "That is not my name." The second day, the queen sent to inquire of all of the neighbors what the servants were called, and told the little man all the most unusual and singular names, saying, "Perhaps you are roast ribs, or sheepshanks, or spindleshanks?" But he answered nothing but, "That is not my name." The third day, the messenger came back and said, "I have not been able to find one single new name, but as I passed through the woods, I came to a high hill, and near it was a little house, and before the house burned in a fire, and round the fire danced a comical little man, and he hopped on one leg and cried, 'Today do I bake, tomorrow I brew. The day after that the king's child comes in, and oh, I am glad that nobody knew that the name I am is called Rumpelstiltskin.'" You cannot think how pleased the queen was to hear that name. And soon afterwards, when the little man walked in and said, "Now, Mrs. Queen, what is my name?" she said at first, "Are you called Jack?" "No," he answered. "Are you called Henry?" she asked again. "No," answered he. And then she said, "Then perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin." "The devil told you that! The devil told you that!" cried the little man, and in his anger he stamped with his right foot so hard that it went into the ground above his knee, and he seized his left foot with both his hands in such a fury that he split in two, and there was an end of him. The end. The end of Rumpelstiltskin. I love that story so much. That's the one I wanted to read the most. Hello, Kimu. How are you? Yeah, that word I've never heard of before. What was it? Avaricious? Never heard of that word before. Well, she tells it very well. Thank you. I tried. Sorry, I stumbled a bit a few times. That'll probably happen a bit more. I don't really read out loud, you know. Hello, River. How are you? And Laughingstock, how are you? Reminds you of a genie. Be careful what you wish for. Exactly. Right. I'm doing very well, thank you, Kimu. I'm glad you're doing well. Reading out loud is surprisingly tough, right? It really is. Okay, let me find another one for us. I think I know what I want to read next. My day is okay. How about you? I'm doing well, thank you. I hope your day gets better. Where is it? There's so many stories in here. I can't find it, so I will do a different one instead. Alright. Well. Okay, this one's a little bit longer. This one is quite a bit longer, so we'll see how this goes. Everyone has read this one, I'm sure. Our next story is Hansel and Gretel. Now, I will say, I don't know, I've never read the classic versions of these, so I don't know what kind of words or content will be featured, but I will try my best to pronounce words and convey meanings as best as I can. Alright, this one's a little bit long. It's like 3 pages longer than Rumpelstiltskin. Alright, are we ready? Let's do this. Hansel and Gretel. Near a great forest there lived a poor woodcutter and his wife and his 2 children. The boy's name was Hansel and the girl's Gretel. They had very little to bite or to sup, and once, when there was great dearth in the land, the man could not even gain the daily bread. As he lay in bed one night thinking of this, and turning and tossing, he sighed heavily, and said to his wife, "What will become of us? We cannot even feed our children. There is nothing left for ourselves." "I will tell you what, husband," answered the wife. "We will take the children early in the morning into the forest, where it is thickest. We will make them a fire, and we will give each of them a piece of bread. Then we will go to our work and leave them alone. They will never find the way home again, and we shall be quit of them." "No, wife," said the man, "I cannot do that. I cannot find it in my heart to take my children into the forest and to leave them there alone. The wild animals would soon come and devour them." "Oh, you fool," said she. "Then we will all 4 starve. You had better get the coffins ready." And she left him no peace until he consented. "But I really pity the poor children," said the man. The 2 children had not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmother had said to their father. Gretel wept bitterly and said to Hansel, "It is all over with us." "Do be quiet, Gretel," said Hansel, "and do not fret. I will manage something." And when the parents had gone to sleep, he got up, put on his little coat, opened the back door, and slipped out. The moon was shining brightly, and the white flints that lay in front of the house glistened like pieces of silver. Hansel stooped and filled the little pocket of his coat as full as it would hold. Then he went back again and said to Gretel, "Be easy, dear little sister, and go to sleep quietly. God will not forsake us," and laid himself down again in his bed. When the day was breaking and before the sun had risen, the wife came and awakened the 2 children, saying, "Get up, you lazy bones. We are going into the forest to cut wood." Then she gave each of them a piece of bread and said, "That is for dinner, and you must not eat it before then, for you will get no more." Gretel carried the bread under her apron, for Hansel had his pockets full of the flints. Then they set off all together on their way to the forest. When they had gone a little way, Hansel stood still and looked back towards the house. And this he did again and again, till his father said to him, "Hansel, what are you looking at? Take care not to forget your legs." "Oh, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my little white kitten, who is sitting up on the roof to bid me goodbye." "You young fool," said the woman, "that is not your kitten, but the sunshine on the chimney pot." Of course Hansel had not been looking at his kitten, but had been taking every now and then a flint from his pocket and dropping it on the road. When they reached the middle of the forest, the father told the children to collect wood to make a fire to keep them warm, and Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood enough for a little mountain, and it was set on fire. And when the flame was burning quite high, the wife said, "Now lie down by the fire and rest yourselves, you children, and we will go and cut wood, and when we are ready we will come and get and fetch you." So Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and at noon they each ate their pieces of bread. They thought their father was in the wood all the time, as they seemed to hear the strokes of the axe, but really it was only a dry branch hanging to a withered tree that the wind moved to and fro. So when they had stayed there a long time, their eyelids closed with weariness, and they fell fast asleep. When at last they woke up, it was night, and Gretel began to cry and said, "How shall we ever get out of this wood?" But Hansel comforted her, saying, "Wait a little while longer until the moon rises, and then we can easily find the way home." And when the full moon got up, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the way where the flintstones shone like silver, and showed them the road. They walked on the whole night through, and at the break of day they came to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the wife opened it and saw it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You naughty children, why did you sleep so long in the wood? We thought you were never coming home again." But the father was glad, for it had gone to his heart to leave them both in the woods alone. Not very long after that, there was a great scarcity in those parts, and the children heard their mother say at night in bed to their father, "Everything is finished up. We have only half a loaf, and after that the tale comes to an end. The children must be off. We will take them farther into the wood this time, so that they shall not be able to find the way back again. There is no other way to manage." The man felt sad at heart, and he thought this would be better to share one's last morsel with one's children. But the wife would listen to nothing that he said, but scolded and reproached him. He who says A must say B too, and when a man has given in once, he has to do it a second time. But the children were not asleep, and had heard all the talk. When the parents had gone to sleep, Hansel got up to go out and get more flintstones, as he did before, but the wife had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. But he comforted his little sister and said, "Don't cry, Gretel, and go sleep quietly, and God will help us." Early the next morning, the wife came and pulled the children out of bed. She gave them each at least a little piece of bread, less than before. And on the way to the wood, Hansel crumbled the bread in his pocket, and often stopped to throw a crumb to the ground. "Hansel, what are you stopping behind and staring for?" said the father. "I'm looking at my little pigeon sitting on the roof to say goodbye to me," answered Hansel. "You fool," said the wife. "That is no pigeon, but the morning sun shining on the chimney pots." Hansel went on as before, and strewed breadcrumbs all along the road. The woman led the children far into the wood, where they had never been before in all their lives. And again there was a large fire made, and the mother said, "Sit still there, you children, and when you are tired you can go to sleep. We are going into the forest to cut wood, and in the evening, when we are ready to go home, we will come and fetch you." So when noon came, Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, who had strewed his along the road. Then they went to sleep, and the evening passed, and no one came for the poor children. When they awoke, it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister, and said, "Wait a little, Gretel, until the moon gets up. Then we shall be able to see the way home by the crumbs of bread that I have scattered along it." So when the moon rose, they got up, but they could find no crumbs of bread, for the birds of the woods and of the fields had come and picked them up. Hansel thought they might find the way all the same, but they could not. They went on all that night, and the next day from the morning until the evening, but they could not find the way out of the wood, and they were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but the few berries they could pick up. And when they were so tired that they could no longer drag themselves along, they lay down under a tree and fell asleep. It was now the third morning since they had left their father's house. They were always trying to get back to it, but instead of that, they only found themselves farther in the wood. And if help had not soon come, they would have starved. About noon, they saw a pretty snow-white bird sitting on a bough, and singing so sweetly that they stopped to listen. And when he had finished, the bird spread his wings and flew before them, and they followed after him until they came to a little house. And the bird perched on the roof, and when they came nearer, they saw that the house was built of bread and roofed with cakes, and the window was a transparent sugar. "We will have some of this," said Hansel, "and make a fine meal. I will eat a piece of the roof, Gretel, and you can have some of the window. That will taste sweet." So Hansel reached up and broke off a bit of the roof, just to see how it tasted. And Gretel stood by the window and gnawed at it. Then they heard a thin voice calling out from inside, "Nibble, nibble like a mouse. Who is nibbling at my house?" And the children answered, "Never mind, it is the wind." And they went on eating, never disturbing themselves. Hansel, who found that the roof tasted very nice, took down a great piece of it, and Gretel pulled out a large round window pane, and sat her down and began upon it. Then the door opened, and an aged woman came out, leaning upon a crutch. Hansel and Gretel felt very frightened, and let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Ah, my dear children, how come you here? You must come indoors and stay with me. You will be no trouble." So she took them each by the hand and led them into her little house, and there they found a good meal laid out of milk and pancakes, with sugar, apples, and nuts. After that she showed them 2 little white beds, and Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down on them, and thought they were in heaven. The old woman, although her behavior was so kind, was a wicked witch, who lay in wait for children, and had built the little house on purpose to entice them. When they were once inside, she used to kill them, cook them, and eat them, and then it was a feast day with her. The witch's eyes were red, and she could not see very far, but she had a keen scent, like the beasts, and knew very well when human creatures were near. When she knew that Hansel and Gretel were coming, she gave a spiteful laugh, and said triumphantly, "I have them, and they shall not escape me." Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she got up to look at them, and as they lay sleeping so peacefully, with round rosy cheeks, she said to herself, what a fine feast I shall have." Then she grasped Hansel with her withered hand and led him into a little stable and shut him up behind a grating. And call and scream as he might, it was no good. Then she went back to Gretel and shook her, crying, "Get up, lazy bones, fetch water and cook something nice for your brother. He is outside in the stable and must be fattened up, and when he is fat enough, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was no use. She had to do what the wicked witch bade her. And so the best kind of victuals was cooked for poor Hansel, while Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Each morning the old woman visited the little stable and cried, "Hansel, stretch out your finger, that I may tell if you will soon be fat enough." Hansel, however, used to hold out a little bone, and the old woman, who had weak eyes, could not see what it was, and supposing it to be Hansel's finger, wondered very much that it was not getting fatter. When 4 weeks had passed, and Hansel seemed to remain so thin, she lost patience and could wait no longer. "Now then, Gretel," cried she to the little girl, "be quick and draw water. Hansel be fat or be lean. Tomorrow I must kill and cook him." Oh, what a grief for the poor little sister to have to fetch water, and how the tears flew down her cheeks. "Dear God, pray help us," cried she. "If we had been devoured by wild beasts in the wood, at least we should have died together." "Spare me your lamentations," said the old woman. "They are of no avail." Early next morning, Gretel had to get up, make the fire, and fill the kettle. "First, we will do the baking," said the old woman. "I have heated the oven already and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel towards the oven, out of which the flames were already shining. "Creep in," said the witch, "and see if it is properly hot, so that the bread may be baked." And Gretel, once in, she meant to shut the door upon her and let her be baked, and then she would have eaten her. But Gretel perceived her intention and said, "I don't know how to do it. How shall I get in?" "Stupid goose," said the old woman. "The opening is big enough. Do you see? I could get in myself." And she stooped down and put her head in the oven's mouth. Then Gretel gave her a push, so that she went in farther, and she shut the iron door upon her and put up the bar. Oh, how frightfully she howled! But Gretel ran away and left the wicked witch to burn miserably. Gretel went straight to Hansel, opened the stable door, and cried, "Hansel, we are free! The old witch is dead!" Then out flew Hansel like a bird from its cage as soon as the door is opened. How rejoiced they both were! How they fell on the other's neck and danced about, and kissed each other. And as they had nothing more to fear, they went over all the witch's house. And in every corner there stood chests of pearls and precious stones. "This is something better than flint stones," said Hansel, as he filled his pockets, and Gretel, thinking she would also like to carry something home with her, filled her apron full. "Now, away we go," said Hansel. "If we only can get out of the witch's wood." When they had journeyed a few hours, they came to a great piece of water. "We can never get across this," said Hansel. "I see no stepping stones and no bridge, and there is no boat either," said Gretel. "But here comes a white duck. If I ask her, she will help us over." So she cried, "Duck, duck, here we stand, Hansel and Gretel on the land. Stepping stones and bridge we lack. carry us over on your nice white back." And the duck came accordingly, and Hansel got upon her and told his sister to come too. "No," answered Gretel. "That would be too hard upon the duck. We can go separately, one after the other." And that was how it was managed, and after that they went on happily until they came to the wood, and the way grew more and more familiar, till at last they saw in the distance their father's house. Then they ran till they came up to it, rushed in at the door, and fell on the father's neck. The man had not had a quiet hour since he left his children in the wood, but the wife was dead. And when Gretel opened her apron, the pearls and precious stones were scattered all over the room, and Hansel took one handful after another out of his pocket. Then was all care at the end, and they lived in great joy together. The end. That was a long one. I love that story so much though. I don't think it counts as Old English, but the English is a little bit difficult to understand sometimes. So, I might sound a bit unsure sometimes. Because I don't know what I'm reading. Very clever kids, yes. I love that story. So I guess the old woman just died at the end. The stepmother just died. I guess. Maybe she starved. Goodbye and good night. No problem, big star. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a good rest. I didn't remember how the witch got what she deserved. It's really satisfying, right? You want to cook me? No, I'm gonna cook you. That was kind of random. Yeah, it was, right? Let's see. I might one day do a full reading of the Brothers Grimm stories. Not all at once, but like, I might do like a stream series of getting through the Brothers Grimm stories, because there are a lot of them. There are 211 in this book. So that could be something we could do. I didn't know all the stories, so can you read every single book that exists? I didn't. Probably not. Probably not. If only. 211. Yeah, there's so many. Let's see. What does the index have? Okay. We can do this one. I've actually never read this one before. So, this is gonna be fun. The Frog Prince. Alright. This one is a bit shorter. Okay. Okay. The Frog Prince. Long ago, when... Oh! Wait. I gotta read. Mubini, thank you so much for the raid! We're just about to start another story. Perfect timing. How was your stream? Did you have fun? I hope you had a lot of fun. Thank you for the raid. Hello everyone, I am Mocchu. Today we are reading bedtime stories, so if you're feeling ready for bed and nice and sleepy, then get comfy. Get all tucked in nice and warm. It was fun. I hope you're having a comfy stream. I am. Thank you, Mubini. Thank you. We just read Hansel and Gretel with the scary witch. And they killed the witch. They murdered her. They cooked her. Hello raiders, hello idols. I hope you're all doing wonderfully. Feel free to get nice and comfy if you so wish. We're just about to start another story, so that was good timing. Thank you for being here. Feel free to rest and get some food if you need to. Alright, let's get started. The Frog Prince. Long ago, when wishes often came true, there lived a king whose daughters were all handsome. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun himself, who has seen everything, was bemused every time he shone over her because of her beauty. Near the royal castle there was a great dark wood, and in the wood, under an old linden tree, was a well. And when the day was hot, the king's daughter used to go forth into the wood and sit by the brink of the cool well. And if the time seemed long, she would take out a golden ball and throw it up and catch it again. And this was her favorite pastime. Now it happened one day that the golden ball, instead of falling back into the maiden's little hand, which had sent it aloft, dropped to the ground near the edge of the well and rolled in. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes as it sank. But the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. Then she began to weep, and she wept and wept as if she could never be comforted. And in the midst of her weeping, she heard a voice saying to her, "What ails you, king's daughter? Your tears would melt a heart of stone." And when she looked to see where the voice came from, there was nothing but a frog, stretching his thick, ugly head out of the water. "Oh, is it you, old waddler?" she said. "I weep because my golden ball has fallen into the well." "Never mind, do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help you. But what will you give me if I fetch up your ball again?" "Whatever you like, dear frog," said she. "Any of my clothes, my pearls and jewels, or even the golden crown that I wear." "Your clothes, pearls and jewels, and your golden crown are not for me," answered the frog. "But if you would love me, and have me for your companion and playfellow, and let me sit by you at table, and eat from your plate, and drink from your cup, and sleep in your little bed, if you would promise all this, then would I dive below the water, and fetch you your golden ball again." "Oh yes," she answered, "I will promise it all, whatever you want, if you will only get me my ball again." But she thought to herself, what nonsense he talks, as if he could do anything but sit in the water and croak with the other frogs. or could possibly be anyone's companion. But the frog, as soon as he heard her promise, threw his head under the water and sank down out of sight. But after a while, he came to the surface again with the ball in his mouth, and he threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was overjoyed to see her pretty plaything again, and she caught it up and ran off with it. "Stop, stop," cried the frog. "Take me up too. I cannot run as fast as you." But it was of no use, for croak, croak after her as he might, she would not listen to him, but made haste home, and very soon forgot all about the poor frog, who had to betake himself to his well again. The next day, when the king's daughter was sitting at table with the king and all the court, and eating from her golden plate, there came something pitter-patter up the marble stairs, and then there came a knocking at the door, and a voice crying, "Youngest king's daughter, let me in!" And she got up and ran to see who it could be. But when she opened the door, there was the little frog sitting outside. Then she shut the door hastily and went back to her seat, feeling very uneasy. The king noticed how quickly her heart was beating, and said, "My child, what are you afraid of? Is there a giant standing at the door ready to carry you away?" "Oh no," answered she, "no giant, but a horrid frog." "And what does the frog want?" asked the king. "Oh dear father," answered she, "when I was sitting by the well yesterday and playing with my golden ball, it fell into the water. And while I was crying for the loss of it, the frog came and got it again for me on one condition: I would let him be my companion. But I never thought that he could leave the water and come after me. But now there he is outside the door, and he wants to come into me." And then they all heard him knocking the second time and crying, "Youngest king's daughter, open to me. By the well water, what promised you me? Youngest king's daughter, now open to me. That which thou hast promised must thou perform," said the king. "So go now and let him in." So she went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in, following at her heels till she reached her chair. Then he stopped and cried, "Lift me up to sit by you." But she delayed doing so until the king ordered her. When once the frog was on the chair, he wanted to get on the table, and there he sat and said, "Now push your golden plate a little nearer so that we may eat together." And so she did, but everybody might see how unwilling she was, and the frog feasted heartily, but every morsel seemed to stick in her throat. "I have had enough now," said the frog at last, "and as I am tired, you must carry me to your room and make ready your silken bed, and we will lie down and go to sleep." Then the king's daughter began to weep, and was afraid of the cold frog, that nothing would satisfy him, but he must sleep in her pretty clean bed. Now the king grew angry with her, saying, "That which thou hast promised in any time of necessity, must thou now perform." So she picked up the frog with her finger and thumb, carried him upstairs and put him in a corner. And when she had laid down to sleep, he came creeping up, saying, "I am tired and want sleep as much as you. Take me up, or I will tell your father." Then she felt beside herself with rage, and picking him up, she threw him with all her strength against the wall, crying, "Now will you be quiet, you horrid frog?" But as he fell, he ceased to be a frog, and became all at once a prince, with beautiful, kind eyes. And it came to pass that with her father's consent, they became bride and bridegroom. and he told her how a wicked witch had bound him by her spells, and how no one but she alone could have released him, and that they two would go together to his father's kingdom. And there came to the door a carriage drawn by 8 white horses with white plumes on their heads, and with golden harness, and behind the carriage was standing faithful Henry, the servant of the young prince. Now, faithful Henry had suffered such care and pain when his master was turned into a frog, that he had been obliged to wear 3 iron bands over his heart to keep it from breaking, with trouble and anxiety. When the carriage started to take the prince to his kingdom, and faithful Henry had helped them both in, he got up behind and was full of joy at his master's deliverance. And when they had gone a part of the way, the prince heard a sound at the back of the carriage, as if something had broken, and he turned around and cried, "Henry, the wheel must be breaking." But Henry answered, "The wheel does not break. 'Tis the band round my heart, that, to lessen its ache, when I grieved for your sake, I bound round my heart." Again, and yet once again, there was the same sound, and the prince thought it must be the wheel breaking, but it was the breaking of the other bands from faithful Henry's heart, because he was so relieved and happy. The end. That one did take quite a turn, didn't it? She was so mean to that poor frog. Why would he marry her? Poor little frog. Poor frog. To judge a book by its cover, I guess? Yeah. So the moral is throw frogs at walls? I guess so. I guess so. Perhaps he had, like, conditions that needed to be met in order for him to transform. And once she picked him up, that was the final condition he needed. I guess. Her voice is making me eerie. Oh, I'm glad, Axel. If you need to rest, then feel free to do so, okay? Alright. I think we can do one more. How does that sound? We'll do a short and sweet one for the last story. This one, another classic. Little Red Riding Hood. One more. Alright. One more. Get nice and comfy, all tucked in. Okay. Alright, let's do this. Last story. Little Red Riding Hood. There was once a sweet little maid, much loved by everybody, but most of all by her grandmother, who never knew how to make enough of her. Once she set her a little riding hood of red velvet, and as it was very becoming to her, and she never wore anything else, people called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here are some cakes and a flask of wine for you to take to grandmother. She is weak and ill, and they will do her good. Make haste and start before it grows hot, and walk properly and nicely. And don't run, or you might fall and break the flask of wine, and there would be none left for grandmother. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say good morning, instead of staring about you." "I will be sure to take care," said Little Red Riding Hood to her mother, and gave her hand upon it. Now the grandmother lived away in the wood, half an hour's walk from the village, and when Little Red Riding Hood had reached the wood, she met the wolf. But as she did not know what a bad sort of animal he was, she did not feel frightened. "Good day, Little Red Riding Hood," said he. "Thank you kindly, Wolf," answered she. "Where are you going so early, Little Red Riding Hood?" "To my grandmother's." "What are you carrying under your apron?" "Cakes and wine. We baked yesterday, and my grandmother is very weak and ill, so they will do her good and strengthen her." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "A quarter of an hour's walk from here. Her house stands beneath the 3 oak trees, and you may know it by the hazel bushes," said Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, "That tender young thing would be a delicious morsel, and would taste better than the old one. I must manage somehow to get both of them." Then he walked by Little Red Riding Hood a little while, and said, "Little Red Riding Hood, just look at the pretty flowers that are growing all around you. And I don't think you are listening to the song of the birds. You are posting along just as if you were going to school, and it is so delightful out here in the wood." Little Red Riding Hood glanced around her, and when she saw the sunbeams darting here and there through the trees, and lovely flowers everywhere, she thought to herself, "If I were to take a fresh nosegay to my grandmother, she would be very pleased. And it is so early in the day that I shall reach her in plenty of time." And so she ran out in the wood, looking for flowers. And as she picked one, she saw a still prettier one a little farther off, and so she went farther and farther into the wood. But the wolf went straight to the grandmother's house, and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" cried the grandmother. "Little Red Riding Hood," he answered. "And I have brought you some cake and wine. Please open the door." "Lift the hatch," cried the grandmother. "I am too feeble to get up." So the wolf lifted the hatch, and the door flew open, and he fell on the grandmother and ate her up without saying one word. Then he drew on her clothes, put on her cap, lay down in her bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Riding Hood was all this time running around amongst the flowers, and when she had gathered as many as she could hold, she remembered her grandmother and set off to go to her. She was surprised to find the door standing open, and when she came inside, she felt very strange and thought to herself, "Oh dear, how uncomfortable I feel. And I was so glad this morning to go to my grandmother." And when she said good morning, there was no answer. Then she went up to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay the grandmother with her cap pulled over her eyes, so that she looked very odd. "Oh, grandmother, what large ears you have!" "The better to hear you with." "Oh, grandmother, what great eyes you have!" "The better to see you with." "Oh, grandmother, what large hands you have!" "The better to take hold of you with." "But, grandmother, what a terrible large mouth you have!" "The better to devour you." And no sooner had the wolf said it, than he made one bound from the bed and swallowed up poor Little Red Riding Hood. Then the wolf, having satisfied his hunger, lay down again in the bed, went to sleep, and began to snore loudly. The huntsman heard him as he was passing by the house and thought, How the old woman snores. I had better see if there is anything the matter with her. Then he went into the room and walked up to the bed and saw the wolf lying there. "At last I find you, you old sinner," said he. "I have been looking for you a long time." And he made up his mind that the wolf had swallowed the grandmother whole, and that she might yet be saved. So he did not fire, but took a pair of shears, and began to slit up the wolf's body. When he made a few snips, Little Red Riding Hood appeared, and after a few more snips, she jumped out and cried, "Oh dear, how frightened I have been! It is so dark inside the wolf." And then out came the old grandmother, still living and breathing. But Little Red Riding Hood went and quickly fetched some large stones, with which she filled the wolf's body, so that when he waked and was going to rush away, the stones were so heavy that he sank down and fell dead. They were all three very pleased. The huntsman took off the wolf's skin and carried it home. The grandmother ate the cakes and drank the wine and held up her head again. And Little Red Riding Hood said to herself that she would never more stray about in the wood alone, but would mind what her mother told her. It must also be related how a few days afterwards, when Little Red Riding Hood was again taking cakes to her grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and wanted to tempt her to leave the path, but she was on her guard and went straight on her way and told her grandmother how that the wolf had met her and wished her good day, but had looked so wicked about the eyes that she thought if she had not been on the high road, he would have devoured her. "Come," said the grandmother, "we will shut the door so that he may not get in." Soon after came the wolf knocking at the door and calling out, "Open the door, grandmother. I am Little Red Riding Hood, bringing you cakes." But they remained still and did not open the door. After that the wolf slunk by the house and got at last upon the roof to wait until Little Red Riding Hood should return home in the evening. Then he meant to spring down upon her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother discovered his plot. Now there stood before the house a great stone trough, and the grandmother said to the child, "Little Red Riding Hood, I was boiling sausages yesterday, so take the bucket and carry away the water they were boiled in, and pour it into the trough." And Little Red Riding Hood did so until the great trough was quite full. When the smell of the sausages reached the nose of the wolf, he snuffed it up and looked around, and stretched out his neck so far that he lost his balance and began to slip. And he slipped down off the roof straight into the great trough and was drowned. Then Little Red Riding Hood went cheerfully home and came to no harm. The end. There were multiple wolves. And they both died. I didn't realize how weird this story was. I know, right? So many of these stories are strange. Strange and unusual. Thank you for those follows I got during that story, by the way. Color Traveler and Real Champion. Thank you so much. I didn't know about that last part. Yeah, right? I don't really remember the full story, but I remember parts of it. They gotta relocate? They really do. It's been a long time since I heard the story, right? I know, right? That's so nostalgic. they were made to scare kids. Yeah, I would believe that. They wrote these stories to scare kids from straying the path, right? Oops. My pillow changed color. Magically. Okay. We can chat a little bit. Before I'm gone. Just some relaxing chatting in case anyone is asleep. I don't want to wake anyone up. Tammy, thank you so much for the subscription. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Stream was great. You have a lovely voice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Definitely way more confused than scared. Learned how to boil wolves and throw frogs at the wall, right? You won't be gone for long, right? No, I won't. Don't worry. I won't. I'll be here tomorrow. I promise. I promise. The stream was so fun. It was so nice being able to see you. Thank you. Yes, I'm very glad as well. Thank you so much, Fall Night. I'm new. What's your streaming schedule? I don't really have a set schedule every week. I will soon. But for now, I let you guys know in the Discord. So feel free to join that if you would like to see the schedules and stuff. Sorry, the pillow is connected to my exclamation point. So it changes every time I type it. So yeah, I don't really have a set schedule every week, but join the Discord to see my schedule every week. I know you've been busy. Yeah, this week was really busy. Last minute, I had to rearrange some stuff. But I'll be here tomorrow and early next week. I think late next week I might be not available, but early next week I'll be here. This is quite enjoyable. I'll have to check things out more. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Sad I came at the end. It's okay, Champy. It's okay. Feel free to rewatch the VOD to catch the other stories we read. We read 4 stories. Great stream. Thank you so much, Hunt. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the stories. Of course. I will probably do another one of these at some point in the future. I'm not sure when though, but I will. I will. Let's see. No one's streaming. No. I was gonna raid, but let's see. Let's see. Who can I raid? I don't know if there's anyone to read. Looking forward to your streams. Thank you. Thank you. Reading some stories would definitely be a good ASMR trigger. You know, I actually wanted to make an ASMR video of reading stories, but I had no idea how to execute it. Like specifically via chat ASMR. But I didn't know how to execute it. So I didn't do that. I thought it would be easier to do it in a stream like this instead of in 3D, you know? What big ears you have. Well, it's all the better to hear you with. What big eyes you have. All the better to see you with. I mean, you're called Chewies for a reason, right? Okay. I'm gonna end it there, everybody. I think I'm gonna throw you into the void. I can't find anyone to raid. That there are some, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid. So I'll see you all tomorrow, okay? Not very long. We'll play some more Zelda. Finally, we'll play some more Zelda. I guess it's over. We're getting eaten. Yes. Yes, I will chew on the chewies. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you can relax and have a great rest. And I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you all so much. I'll miss you. Be good, okay? Okay, good night, everyone. Bye bye.